or so?
Oh yeah. No, this is early in the game.
Right.
We still got the red fiberglass scoop. I don't know where we got that. It was like a mailbox style.
I was going to ask you what color it was because there's no color pictures of this car. I don't know if it was just cast magnesium or what it was. It's hard to tell what it is.
No, it's just fiberglass and it's just a medium red, maybe fire engine red. I don't know if that's the right term. And today, Bob Higginson got sidetracked with his work. And so we have two superstars with us today. We have the famous Don, the wave maker.
There he is.
And we have Mr. Rod
And we're swinging back, Mr. Rod.
the king of history.
Yes,
King of history.
the king of history.
Between these two guys, they got it all.
Yes.
Rod has it all.
And if we don't have it, we can make it up.
Right? Yes,
Rod has it all. Has all the drag newses. Prieto, he carries all that in his head. He doesn't need the boxes full of stuff.
Right.
Anyway, so they've got a bunch of printouts that Rod made of different articles that were in the drag racing papers. And we're going to just use those to kind of work our way through sort of the history. As far as I remember, we started racing our car in late '63. The exact date's a little questionable, but anyway, very late in '63, and then we go right into '64. And we're just stumbling along, racing our car, trying to not go broke, which was a key thing, and learn as much as we could possibly learn. And at first, we're running our car one day a week. Later, we gain the confidence occasionally to run it the second day. So we'd race on Sunday, and usually that would be San Fernando, because that was close to us and a very comfortable way to race with Harry Hebler.
And they raced Sundays.
And
Not everybody raced Sundays, so.
And the round money paid for the fuel for the next weekend.
Yes, yes. And just racing where Harry Hebler was the manager, and the Wallace family worked, and a bunch of wonderful people. It was just good fun, and they had some blue laws that the unmuffled cars could only race from, say, noon to 3, a 3-hour window. I don't remember the exact times, but roughly noon to 3. So you could show up late, race, whatever happened, and you were on your way home, and we'd be back at the Red Apple and have the car apart by dinner time and be ready to figure out what we were going to do for the following week to resurrect all of this into a fresh pile.
Now, when you tore your car down, how far did you go?
Mainly with the engine, we went down to a bare block and we scrubbed the bare block, and we scrubbed every other part too. Not because clean parts run better, but because to force ourselves to closely examine everything we owned every week. And we did that every week forever, time permitting. I mean, like when the car was on tour and it was just Bob Skinner and Mike, they couldn't tear the car apart all the time.
But if you ran on Saturday and you were going to run on Sunday the next day, you'd take the car home to the Red Apple.
Yes.
And you'd work on it. Now, question, what was working on it then when it's going to be the next day you were going to take it?
At minimum, you'd take the oil pan off and check the rod bearings at a minimum. And then, and probably the valve covers off and have a look and make sure there was no problems with the valve gear. That would pretty much tell you where you were at. That plus your experience the night before would tell you kind of where you were at. And if there was any question, then you just didn't run on Sunday. And if the main bearings were bad, the rod bearings are going to be bad. So if the rod bearings are good, the mains are good.
All right.
So you wouldn't have to take the mains. And plus, we're not running very hard at this point. You know, the car will only run a low 8.
And what were you running percentage-wise initially here now?
We started with 70%. We started with sort of a mainstream tune-up because it matched the parts that we could buy. When you went to Hillborn, you couldn't tell them, well, we want to run 98 because nobody ran 98. So you told them, well, yeah, we're going to run 70, and they, okay. So that was the limit of their knowledge. So they would make you a setup and nozzle sizes and tell you what jet to put in to get you started.
Baseline.
And we did that with everything so that we were in the known area of top fuel drag racing with what worked and what.
Did you keep a book?
No.
Most people kept a notebook at least with, we did this and we did that. You guys didn't? You just winged it?
I did Prieto style. I just got it.
Nobody did.
Nobody did.
The only thing Skinner had, he'd scribble on pieces of paper, put them in his back pocket.
Oh.
But I think that was just on the money part.
Oh,
Because not going broke was way more important.
Way
than
more
the
important.
technical stuff.
And you talked about keeping track of the number of runs on the motors too, because somewhere later in one of these races, and the motor broke. The crank broke in 3 places. Someone mentioned that it had some ungodly number of runs on it.
Yeah, I don't know who. I didn't remember that number. I knew it was up in
Right.
the hundreds, but I didn't know what it
Right.
was. And it could have come partially from Mike Sorokin. He kept very good records. And then we knew the other people that had driven the car, we knew roughly how many runs we'd made. It was probably just a guesstimate, I would imagine.
Right.
And it could be, too, that some of the photographers might have records of that kind of stuff. I don't know.
Right. Don, I have a question for you. When did these guys come on the scene and were noticeable to you?
The first I remember was they pushed down on the return road to fire up to warm it up before the races. And here comes this car with this ungodly noise. And Madden and I are standing there playing with our car. And he looks over, he says, oh, that's them surfer kids. That thing really growls. So that was the first time I saw that. And I'm pretty certain that was one of the first times that they were out. Because we were at Lions every Saturday night, and that was the first we noticed it. And the car was clearly noticeable by the sound it made, because nobody else made that kind of noise.
Well, that's the question, is like, why was it different? Because you were running a pretty conventional
Yeah, but he
tune
was
at
running,
that
that was
time.
more nitro than any. We were running 50%. Most guys were running 50%.
Okay,
And 70 cackled.
got it.
So
Right, and
that-
we picked 70 because it was the upper end of the current knowledge.
yeah,
That's
there were
why we
guys
picked
that ran 70 and 75. Gotelli, occasionally Zuccio would step up and put that much nitro in it. But usually the tires couldn't stand it. We were limited to 1050s at that point. And Yates would freewheel my motor with 50 in it, so adding more nitro didn't change anything. And there was no slipping clutches, so if the driver was capable of slipping clutches, then you had a chance to not freewheel the motor, especially at Long Beach at night. That's why the Chevys did so well during that era, was because they didn't have the power to spin the tires.
And they even built a Chrysler and called them the night motor.
Yeah,
Where
well,
they built ones down on power. They
Uh,
referred to
Ed-
it as a night motor.
yeah, Ed Peters built a 331 for Sutherland in the Charger, and that was the dreaded night motor, because he won. He'd go to Fontana and win, and come down to Long Beach and tell us how well he did, and then he started going to Lions on Saturday night when Fontana went from like 1 week every week to every other week, and that motor was equal to the Chevys in the way it ran.
But now, Tom, you didn't have a motor for this and a motor for that. You had, here we are,
Mm-hmm.
Anything
we're going to race. And
anything that involved low power was of no interest to us.
Right.
We wanted to make more. What you were
Yeah.
going to do with it, that's some other issue.
We had a driver that understood.
That's right. That was a driver issue then
Yeah.
too.
Oh boy.
Well, we figured some other way that would be handled. Better tires, better technology, better
Yeah.
something. But we wanted more.
Got it.
And that's why we often wouldn't run at Long Beach because of the traction.
When Mike drove and then had the problems with Jimmy Crosser and left and then came back, had the car changed between that amount of time? Had you gone from 70 to 100 or
No.
or the time frame didn't change, so he stepped back into the same car? Really?
Roughly, but we incrementally would change it every week. We would do something every week. It just because we know we had a map of what we were, a plan of what we were going to do, and we would just inch towards that continually till the day we quit drag racing.
Okay.
Or top fuel drag racing.
Well, let's move into the evidence we have, which are the actual recorded articles that talks about some of the performances that you did and the people around you and what they were running as well. That will help us to get a feel for the ETs and the mile per hours and how you did in terms of the race. So what are we looking at right now?
This is dated December of 1963 at Lions, and low ET is the Black Beauty at 8:35, then Anson and Peak at 8:36, and then the Surfers at 8:58, and they're not called the Surfers yet. They're still called Skinner, Crosser, and Job. The Surfer name came later. Barlag and Clark at 8:32. Now, they didn't put them in order here for some reason. So we have 8:35, 8:36, 8:32, Glenn Stokey at 8:50, Loy Gatelli at 8:30. Oops. Nope, the Chargers, Emmett White at 8:22, and Ivo at 8:25. So you guys were at the top of the pack here because Loy T is 8:22 and you're at 8:58.
And what's the date on that?
This is December 7th, 1963.
Right, they just
showed up.
But the jump to top fuel, and you were right in there very quickly.
But not. We aren't going to win anything. Don't worry about that.
Right.
There's not going to be any big wins here. But we had done our homework. We knew kind of what we had and what other people had, and it was just a matter of us not messing it up while we figured out which knob to turn.
He was a good spy.
He's a good spy, really. Did you see him over your shoulder more than once?
Not over mine, because I didn't do anything. There were guys like Madden who had good reputations. Pink. Keith wouldn't let you see anything.
Right.
If Keith had to set the valves, he'd do it at the other end.
Yeah. So anyway, that's an example of the times and showing that you qualified. And how did you do on that particular day?
Let's see. It looks like we're in the second 8. So the first 8 must have been the ones that raced for top eliminated. The second 8, they call it a kicks race.
Kicks race.
They probably just lined you up.
CJ did that a lot because a lot of guys would show up and he'd put on another race.
It was beautiful too.
Paid
because,
$25 or something. But,
Yeah, that's right.
You know,
so it was just round money.
Yeah.
But guys like us loved it because it was a chance to run your car and not have to run it for free.
Right.
And the way I read this here, it said John Peters drove it.
Yeah.
Now, is that not
John
true?
Peters never drove a car.
Right.
I don't think he drove anything.
I know about the
It's
fake
street
name
Your
with
cars, yeah.
Myth Maravis later, but I didn't think he drove anything.
What a high that must have been for you guys to win.
It was almost, I felt bad. You shouldn't be able to beat a hero like that, you know? It almost felt like that. But, you know, hey, we're here racing. And
Yeah.
I didn't enjoy beating Emery Cook. I mean, you're happy to, this is the first time you ever won an event. And you're, oh my God. But to beat Emery Cook was
That's a great
sort of a bittersweet